National Assembly reconvenes from annual recess. Nigeria Labour Congress and the federal government agree on 30,000 naira new minimum wage. In international news, U.S. states of Alabama and Florida are hit by floods as possible major Hurricane Michael gains strength. And in sport, 5,000 athletes set for Uniport 2018 West African University Games in Port Harcourt.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The National Assembly has finally resumed today after postponement, but may immediately adjourn the sitting to Wednesday over the death of a member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Funke Adedoyin. The upper chamber had gone on recess 4 months ago and has had to extend its resumption date by 2 weeks from September to October to allow the lawmakers participate in parties' primary elections to end on Sunday across the country. Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mahmood Yakubu, says public campaigning by presidential candidates begins next month and there should be no campaign before November 18th. The Commission says this is in line with the provisions of the Electoral Act and the agency's timetable. Yakubu advised parties and the candidates to adhere to the electoral timetable during a workshop for election professionals from the Commonwealth Africa region. He reminded political parties and candidates that the end of the primaries did not mean they swung into immediate commencement of campaigns. Ekiti State Governor Ayodele Fayose has threatened to leave the People's Democratic Party (PDP) for another platform should the party sideline him over emergence of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar as the presidential candidate of the party. Fayose and Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, were alleged to have backed the former Speaker of the House of Representatives in the contest, but lost out in spite of their enormous influence in the party. Fayose says in a statement signed in Ado-Ekiti on Monday, he had no regret joining efforts with Wike in support of the aspiration of the Sokoto State Governor, Aminu Tambuwa, in the primary. Senator Gbenga Shafa has conceded defeat to his rival Bayo Oshinawo barely 24 hours after the rejected results of the All Progressives Congress APC senatorial primary in Lagos East Senatorial District. Ashafa says in a statement the decision to concede was based on the need for unity and progress of the party in general. The APC senatorial candidate Oshinawa has described Ashafa's action as a show of sportsmanship that the party professes and practice. Senator Gbenga Shafa presently represents Lagos East Senatorial District and has been in office for 2 terms. The Federal High Court in Abuja has ruled that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) has the power to investigate the finances of a state government without the authorization of the State House of Assembly. Justice Nnamdi Dingba's ruling on Monday differed from the 2 earlier ones by Justices Ibrahim Buba and Taiwo of Ado-Ekiti Division. They had both ruled that EFCC's investigation of the finances of state government without the authorization of the Houses of Assembly was a violation of the principles of federalism. Justice Dingba dismisses the case filed by the Benue State government in August to challenge the powers of the EFCC to investigate its accounts and officials without the authorization of the State's House of Assembly. Residents of Ntwentong in Uyo local government area of Akwa Ibom State say they have been cut off for over decades from neighboring communities by gully erosion. The inhabitants cried the untold hardship they had experienced but expressed hardness over the recent move by the federal government to tackle the problem. They said large portions of their lands were damaged and the community was severed from Ibiaku Uruan in Uruan local government area and other communities. The Minister of State for Environment, Ibrahim Jibril, says while hosting the British Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria, there were bills in Abuja, that the federal government has raised the sum of $177 million out of a $1 billion required for the cleanup of Ogoni land in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. The $1 billion was to be raised over a period of 5 years. Jibrin says with the $177 million for 2018, the balance is expected to come from crude oil refineries, and the ministry has written to inform the president on that. Jibrin also said a department was created to help tackle the challenges posed by the devastating effects of climate change in Nigeria. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, told the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos on Monday it will be calling 2 more witnesses in the trial of a former managing director of Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, NAMA, Ibrahim Abdulsalami, and others over alleged 6.8 billion naira fraud charges. The EFCC lawyer Nemeka Omena gave the hint after the trial judge, Justice Babs Kwemwumi, had discharged the agency's second witness, Texnim Ajuwon, a compliance officer with Zenith Bank PLC. The accused persons are facing a 24-count amended charge bordering on conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and unlawful conversion of funds. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has spoken out once again about the high level of abuse of tramadol and cough syrup among Nigerian youth and women. NDLEA Chairman retired Colonel Mohammed Abdullah says in a speech on crime prevention, criminal justice and world drug problem at the UN General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York. Abdullah says a lot of national and sub-regional initiatives, including capacity development, have been put in place to address the phenomenon common to many countries in the West African sub-region, which has ushered in a new level of transnational organized crimes. Abdullah reiterated Nigeria's commitment to fulfilling its obligations under relevant international instruments in the area of crime prevention, strengthening criminal justice, and addressing world drug problem. The Nigerian Labour Congress NLC President Ayub Awaba has said the federal government would soon announce a new minimum wage as the tripartite committee had completed its assignment for onward submission to President Muhammadu Buhari. Awaba said the committee has reconvened and deliberated on a new minimum wage figure that was acceptable to all employers of labor in the country. He did not disclose the figure arrived at, but findings have it at 30,000 naira. The NLC president says the presidency would soon make it public after deliberation by the National Economic Council meeting. Coming up, African stories, and later on international news, U.S. state of Alabama hit by floods ahead of major Hurricane Michael.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Madam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes. You're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on, so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is in the news. Now to African stories. Collation of election results are still ongoing in Cameroon, but opposition candidate Maurice Kamto has already declared himself a winner. Incumbent party dismissed his claim as fantasy and accused him of breaking the law. Movement for the Rebirth of Cameroon candidate Kamto's dramatic announcement followed the violence that marked Sunday's polls in the restive Anglophone regions. There was low turnout and there was difficulty staging the ballot in the conflict-torn areas. The country's information minister, Issa Chiroma, has issued a warning that Kamto will face the full force of the law for going against institutions. He says the Constitutional Court is responsible for announcing election results within 2 weeks of voting. Madagascar's election race has officially opened on Monday. All three recent presidents are launching their campaigns ahead of next month's vote, following months of political tensions. The country was rocked by protests 7 months ago in the capital over proposed electoral reforms that forced the president to accept the formation of the consensus government tasked with organizing the November election. The leading candidates are the incumbent and the two former presidents. Accusations that the election will be rigged have already been aired by some of the candidates. Gabonese President Ali Bongo's ruling party says it has won the first round of a legislative election by a landslide. The presidency says results posted publicly at voting stations show Bongo's Gabonese Democratic Party had won 80 of the 143 seats in the national parliament. The oil-rich country voted on Saturday in long-delayed legislative and municipal polls. There were allegations of fraud and irregularities during the election. Gabon has been ruled by the same political dynasty for nearly half a century. Egyptian security forces say they have killed 52 suspected jihadists in the Sinai Peninsula in the campaign against Islamic militants. The army said on Monday 3 soldiers also died in the operation. The military launched a sweeping operation in eastern Egypt 8 months ago aimed at wiping out jihadists, including the Islamic State group, which has been waging a bloody insurgency. Official figures show a total of more than 350 suspected jihadists and at least 30 soldiers have been killed in the Sinai this year. The Zimbabwe Central Bank says it will release more than $40 million to deal with crippling petrol shortages in the country. Petrol queues at times stretching for several kilometers at some stations where the norm before fuel ran out. Also, food prices have risen and essential goods are in short supply because of a foreign currency shortage. Authorities say a $500 million credit line will be used to import fuel, medicine and wheat, as well as soybeans to address a shortage of cooking oil. President Emmerson Mnangagwa said on Monday a new tax introduced last week on electronic payment was painful but massively part of the government's attempts to revive the economy. The levy sparked a public outcry. A UK-based Jubilee Debt campaign has said debt problems are worsening on the African continent, the government's external debt payments doubling over the last 2 years. There have been growing concern that China has been causing new debt traps in Africa, but researchers estimates that China is only owed about 20% of African nations' external government debt, a number lower than some might have expected. The UK-based charity says the greater proportion of the loans are from international lenders, including the World Bank and IMF, as well as private sector loans which have higher interest rates. It called for new rules to ensure there is greater transparency for all loans. Up next, international news. Alabama, Florida hit by floods ahead of Hurricane Michael. And later, sport. 5,000 athletes get ready for Uniport West African University Games.
You are watching ANN.
If you know it's called internet or follow for Twitter, you know it's not for Tosset or that is for Tosset. That because you don't use Palasa, your phone not the answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smart money. Palasa code. From when up before your hand, Palasa code. When up it's the champion. Drop that Palasa code. Don't be correct for the Palasa code.
a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store anywhere in Nigeria or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines, the cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network, ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is NN News. In international news, high wind and rain passed over the Mexican peninsula in Cuba as Hurricane Marco heads towards the U.S. Massive floods have taken over Alabama ahead of an expected strike on Florida's panhandle by midweek. Florida and Alabama have both declared states of emergency. The National Hurricane Center says Marco could strengthen into a major hurricane, reaching Category 3 and higher, with winds topping 111 miles per hour by Tuesday night before an expected strike on Wednesday. A large explosion and fire broke out on Monday at Canada's largest oil refinery, while the company operating the plant in St. John, New Brunswick, said all of its workers escaped without any life-threatening injuries. Haven Oil Limited, which owns and operates the 320,000 barrels a day refinery, reported the major incidents on Monday morning. Local media said witnesses reported a bed-shaking explosion followed by large fires several feet high shooting from the plant. Haven said in a statement, the incident remains an active situation. Several contract workers were injured during the incident, but none were non-life-threatening. Hundreds of asylum seekers set up camp outside a police station in Greece, hoping to be arrested and formally processed. The migrants slept on benches and patches of grass in a central square in Greece's second largest city, Thessalonica, before lining up outside the station. Some of the migrants told reporters they just wanted to get their papers so they could stay somewhere and clean up and rest. They were seeking a place at a migrant camp ahead of the winter months, but it's not clear whether there was enough for the new arrivals. Authorities have now moved the migrants to a nearby refugee camp. The Australian government has unveiled a proposal to force new migrants to live outside Sydney. Population Minister Alan Tudge said on Tuesday the policy would aim to ease congestion in Australia's two biggest cities while boosting regional areas. He said the government will introduce visa conditions to limit where some migrants live for up to 5 years. But some experts have questioned whether the idea is enforceable and likely to achieve its goals. Nikki Haley, America's ambassador to the United States, has resigned. Haley was one of the first members of President Donald Trump's cabinet. She was confirmed by the U.S. Senate 4 days after the president's inauguration. Her news shocked a number of foreign policy officials in the Trump administration. Haley served as governor of South Carolina for 6 years until 2017. She is the first woman with Indian American heritage to serve as governor in that state. Haley is the 26th person to have been sacked who had resigned under the Trump administration. When we return, sports, 5,000 athletes set for 2018 Uniports Games. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
MTN gives 2,000% bonus for reactivating your MTN SIM. That's right. If you haven't used your MTN SIM for 45 days or more, recharge now and get 2,000% bonus. That's right, 2,000% bonus for your first recharge of every month.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to sport. At least 5,000 athletes and 500 coaches are expected to feature in the 14th West African University Games, scheduled to begin at the end of this month at the University of Port Harcourt. 400 technical officials and 85 universities from across West African countries are expected to officiate and participate in the games tagged Unique Uniport. 60 universities have already been registered, 16 sporting events are in parade for the games, and more than 1 million spectators are expected to be part of the games, which will run for 13 days. Organizers say the West African University Games are aimed at fostering greater friendships among youths of the West African sub-region. The Sierra Leone government has settled its rift with FIFA after agreeing to reinstate Isha John as the country's Football Association president. FIFA indefinitely suspended the Sierra Leone Football Association after it charged the government with gross interference with association activities. The ban was about to jeopardize the 2019 AFCON qualifier between Ghana and Sierra Leone. After a meeting between officials of FIFA and the Sierra Leone government, the FIFA governing body is set to lift the ban, paving the way for the slated continental qualifier. Those FIFA brands are actually a clincher. But that's ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, ANNAfrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.